We all want to have a great class, right? But what does that actually take? Well, today we're going to unlock the teacher's toolkit and really dig into the essential pieces that make a lesson not just good, but truly effective. Let's get into it. So, what is it? What's that secret ingredient that makes the classroom just click? You know, is it all about being a super charismatic teacher or having perfectly behaved students? The answer, well, it actually lies a little deeper, right inside the very structure of the lesson itself.
Yeah, as it turns out, there's no single magic bullet. Nope. Instead, the real key is a powerful combination of two fundamental things working together in perfect harmony. Okay, let's think about it like building a house. To do it right, you absolutely need two things. First, a detailed blueprint, that's your lesson plan, and second, a solid foundation, that's your classroom management. I mean, if you get one of those wrong, the whole thing can just crumple.
All right, let's start with those blueprints. And our first one is a total classic, the PPP method. This is a very structured, pretty traditional approach that's especially handy when you're teaching specific grammar points.
At its core, PPP is basically a straight road. It takes students on this methodical journey, guiding them from seeing a new concept for the very first time all the way to using it freely on their own. The whole goal is to build up their confidence through a really clear, predictable, step-by-step process.
So how does it work? Well, the process breaks down into three very clear stages. First, the teacher presents the new language, with lots of clear examples. Next, the students get to practice it in very controlled exercises. Think fill in the blanks. And finally, they move on to production, where they use that same language way more creatively, maybe in a conversation or by writing a short story.
And you can probably see the central trade-off here. The huge pro is how predictable it is. Students always know exactly what's coming next, and that can be super reassuring. But the con? That same structure can feel a bit rigid, and it might not totally prepare students for the messy, spontaneous nature of a real-world conversation. So if PPP is the traditional blueprint, what's a more modern alternative? Well, let me introduce you to the ESA model, which offers a completely different way of thinking about lesson structure. The ESA model is all about flexibility and getting students hooked from the very beginning. So instead of that straight line we saw with PPP, this is way more like a cycle that the teacher can move through in all sorts of different ways. The cycle usually kicks off with engage. You've got to grab their attention with a video, a cool story, or maybe a fun game. From there, you move into the study phase where you focus on the nuts and bolts of the language. And finally, you activate what they've learned, getting them to use it in a meaningful task like a debate or a role play.
The real beauty of ESA is its flexibility. A teacher can actually loop through these stages multiple times in just one lesson. But that amazing strength is also its biggest challenge. It really demands that the teacher be incredibly adaptable and ready to respond to what's happening in the room at a moment's notice.
Okay, on to our third and final blueprint, task-based learning, or TBL. And this one really flips the script. In a TBL lesson, the main event isn't some grammar point, it's the task itself. The entire lesson is built around the students achieving a real-world goal, something like planning a trip or solving a tricky problem together. And what's really crucial here is the order of events. First, you have the pre-task phase that just sets the scene. Then, the students actually do the task, focusing on communicating and getting their point across, not on perfect grammar. It's only after that, in the post-task phase, that the teacher circles back to look at the specific language that came up naturally.
TBL is absolutely fantastic for building fluency and confidence because students are using language for a real reason. The potential downside, for total beginners who don't have a lot of language to pull from yet, it can feel a little like being thrown in the deep end without more structured support. Okay, so let's pull these three blueprints together for a quick comparison. PPP is all about accuracy, with the teacher as the presenter. ESA is all about engagement, with the teacher acting as more of a facilitator. And TBL, that one focuses on fluency, with the teacher becoming a monitor. Each one has a time and a place where it's really going to shine.
All right, we've explored our blueprints. But remember what we said at the start? Any blueprint is pretty much useless if you don't have a solid foundation to build on. And that is where classroom management comes in.
I mean, it doesn't matter how brilliant your lesson plan is if the classroom itself is just chaotic, right? Effective management is what creates that stable, positive atmosphere where your great ideas can actually take root and grow. Now, one of the biggest management challenges for any teacher is the mixed ability classroom. So how do you handle it? Well, some key strategies are creating tasks with different difficulty levels, grouping your students strategically, offering extra challenges for those who finish early, and really encouraging a culture where students help each other learn.
But honestly, beyond any specific tactic, this is the real heart of classroom management. The ultimate goal is to build a culture of support, a truly safe space where students aren't afraid to make mistakes, and where every single small step of progress is genuinely celebrated by everyone.
So after all that, what's the final takeaway? How do we take all these ideas and become a master builder in our own classroom?
Ultimately, it all comes back to that central metaphor. A truly thriving classroom needs both: a thoughtful, well-chosen blueprint for your lesson and a strong, supportive foundation of classroom culture. When you combine those two, you create the perfect space for learning to happen.
Which leaves us with one final question for you to think about. When you picture your own students and your own goals, which one of these blueprints, the structured PPP, the flexible ESA, or the communicative TBL, are you going to build with first?